I'm Lyle Stubian. I'm with the Grand County Board of Realtors. We're the sponsor tonight for this final debate. It's a forum rather than a debate. And we're pleased to be here. For those of you that know the Grand County Board of Realtors, we're a nonpartisan group, and our primary focus is promoting home ownership and also preserving property rights. And we do that at national and state and local levels. We have a state organization where we have a chair-elect of the Legislative Policies Committee that resides here in Grand County. So we have a say in it. For those of you that have interest in expressing opinions, feel free to call the Board of Realtors, and one of us will relay your opinions, but you can also make sure that they get it at the Capitol. At the state level, our representative helps the lobbying effort, and they also review all of the bills that go before the legislature and pass on those yay or nay, and try to influence how they might be rewritten or revised. So we thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate your attention. And before we start, please join me in the pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start this evening. We'll let the candidates introduce themselves, except one. Jane Collins is not here, and Whitney Kemper will be reading her answers to the questions that we have. Can everyone hear me?
Barely.
Barely? Okay, I'll yell loud.
Microphone?
I'll be right back. There we go. Okay, as I was saying, we have tonight, in place of Jane Collett, Whitney Kemper, that will be reading her answers. The other candidates will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. They've been given the answer, or been given the questions. And then there will be the opportunity to rebut if someone wants to rebut. And we have our timekeeper down here that will keep us on track, and we'll get through as many questions as we can tonight. So with that, Tom, would you like to start us with introducing each of yourselves?
All right, let's try this one. My name is Tom Wider, and I'm running for commissioner for District 2. My wife Kathy and I, we've been married for 40 years. We have 3 children and 5 grandchildren. I received my degree from the University of Denver in real estate and construction management. Looking for a change in lifestyle, we moved to Grand Lake in 1987. We built and operated Grand Lake Lane for 14 years. When we sold in 2001, I began working as an appraiser in the assessor's office and was elected as a county assessor in 2006. I have experience serving on many boards during my 30 years here in Grand County. I have served on the Grand Lake Town Board, the Planning Commission, both of those for 18 years. I served on the Grand Lake Fire Board for 20 years, and all of this service has involved complex interaction of working together with not only other board members, but also with government agencies, and most importantly, the public that we serve. I feel strongly that the county has been going in the wrong direction, and a change of leadership is necessary. I'm deeply troubled by the lack of communication, the erosion of public trust, and the lack of respect given to the citizens of Grand County. With new leadership, I am looking forward to open communication, a welcoming atmosphere to the public at commissioners' meetings, and a county that is run efficiently. I believe the key to good governance is open communication and respect. I believe that you need to lead by example. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chaz McConnell, and thank you all for coming. It's the best turnout out of the 5 debates. It's an important part of the process of getting to know your commissioners. So thank you all for coming and taking time out of your day. My name is Chaz McConnell. I've been in Grant County for 36 years. I arrived with only my college diploma, my work ethic, and $58 in my pocket. I met my beautiful wife, Ann, here. We had 2 great kids here. I started McConnell Printing here 28 years ago. Everything I have is because of Grand County. I have a proven record of researching information, identifying problems, and seeking solutions. Tonight is the last of 5 debates over the past 5 weeks. I'm hoping that everybody got a chance to see some of them and listen to the candidates' views. There's a lot of different views up here. What you will hear is how the past doesn't matter. And I'm sorry, but to me the past does matter. That's got us to where we are as a county. And I want to go on record as saying that after the events of this past week, the last thing that I wanted to do right here, this was the last thing I wanted to do, is to come here. We had a loss in the Fraser Valley, tragic loss, and I wanted to stand by my commitment to be here. Having somebody else speak for me was unacceptable. And I also want everybody in the room to know that everything that I've done over the past 30 months, I've done being 100% truthful, using only the facts. And I don't feel I need to defend myself. My actions and the results will do that for me. My name is Chaz McConnell, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Richard Chimino. I'm seeking to be your county commissioner from District 1. I grew up in Raton, New Mexico. I wish I was from Colorado. We're like 5 miles too south of the border. But I came to Colorado all the time with lots of sports and events. I went to the Air Force Academy in 1990. And in 1991, I saw for the first time Grand County. Me and some fellow cadets got away for a ski weekend. And I cannot believe how beautiful the mountains, the rivers, and lakes. I told my friends I'm going to live here someday. And they, yeah, right, they didn't believe me. But then I've been coming up here every year since then, for 25 years. In 1993, I escaped the academy again for a weekend and went up to CU Boulder. And I met a girl there, and lo and behold, she's from Hot Sulphur Springs. I married Nikki Doucette in 1994 in Grand Lake at St. Anne's Church with Father Andrew Gottschalk. And we would have loved to live here, but I made a commitment to the Air Force, and Nikki decided to join me. We went on a wild journey with the military, moving back and forth across the country. We lived in 10 homes. My kids have gone to numerous different schools. We wanted our children to feel they were from somewhere. I don't know how many of you are military brats or no military brats. That's not a bad term, by the way. We call our kids brats. It's an endearing term. But they've been visiting here every year, and finally, in 2013, I got the chance to move here. So I've only been a full-time resident since 2013. But my career in the Air Force entailed lots of activities that I think will be applicable to County Commissioner. I mostly managed budgets for national intelligence programs, budgets that were $150 million a year. I also was an operations officer for a National Reconnaissance Ground Station that involved keeping up roads and buildings, infrastructure like electricity and water, communications infrastructure, and it was a great career. I'd recommend it to anybody. Since I've been here though, I've been working hard. I'm a member of Lions Club, Rotary Club, and American Legion, and I'd like to continue serving as your commissioner.
Thanks, Rich. I'm Andy Miller, running Democratic primary for Grant County Commissioner. I had an epiphany recently about living in Grant County, and that was the seasonal employment up here keeps you hopping, keeps you on your toes. And I've had a lot of jobs in my 40 years up here, and all of them I think have really led closely to this. But I wanted to talk just for a minute about my father, who appears as superintendent of schools in 1950, and the story behind this is that he put together the 5 local school districts into the first Union High School class of 1950 here, and taught for, or was superintendent and principal for 1 more year after that in 1951, but he made a lot of friends doing that, but he also got a lot of people upset. So he moved to Denver with my family in 1951, and that's where I grew up. I was born that year. Came back to Grant County as an adult, and like to try and emulate the kind of courage he had to do that in his mid-20s. Years ago, during one of the economic downturns, I went to work in Henderson Mine. This is one of my more obscure jobs. And I ended up 4,000 feet underground on the 7,500 foot level. And the other miners called me Teach, because I made it known that I shouldn't have made it known I had a college degree. That wasn't helpful. And anyway, my final test with those guys was having to haul a 120-pound jackhammer out over what's called the Grizzly to break up rocks to get them to fall through a set of iron bars 50 feet down a shaft into the main muck skip. I passed that test, fortunately. It was one you either pass or you don't come back out. But anyway, I was tied off. I mean, it wasn't that bad. But in any case, I felt that was a nice a good early test and a good way to prove myself as a member of that crew. But no test in Grant County has been more satisfying or greater than raising 2 sons up here. So I hope you'll take my unique mix of experience, public service, and professional training in making your next Grant County Commissioner. Thank you.
I am Merritt Linke, and first of all, I'd like to say thanks to Carl and to Sandy for coming together to put this on. Thanks, Doug, for being our timekeeper. Thank you, Loyal, for being our moderator tonight. Thank you all for coming. I am a Grant County native. I'm a part of a 4th-generation ranch family. I was born in Krimling, part of Grant County, in a year when the population was only 3,557. That doesn't date me much, but if you look down the hall, you can find my picture on the wall. That might date me a little bit too, because I'm a graduate of Middle Park High School, as are my older brother, my younger brother, and my 3 sisters, also born in Grant County. My mom and dad are here tonight to say hello to them, and it was quite an accomplishment to get all those kids raised without any of us going to jail, and all 6 of us are college graduates. So that's quite an accomplishment that they have put together. I am currently sitting as Grant County Commissioner. I have been doing so for this is the end of my, well, 3.5 years into this business. I have been involved in all kinds of things associated with the Commissioner business. I just came from Colorado Counties Incorporated, CCI. I am our representative for Grant County to that, and the other commissioners also go at times. But Colorado Counties, Inc. is the organization that supports and advocates for counties in terms of legislative sessions, which I also go to the steering committees and advocate for things that benefit Grant County and also West Slope issues. I also sit on Club 20 as a representative. I sit on the Colorado Workforce, and I am actually I got elected to be the chief local elected official by the 5-member Northwest region. I go to the mayor, manager, commissioner, and then C, that we all put together to work collaboratively with the town's managers and the other commissioners. And I spend a lot of time with other community service groups like Club 20 and Granby Rotary. Thank you all for coming. I am your current commissioner, and I'd like to continue the work that we have done. Thank you.
Obviously, folks, I'm not Jane Toilette, but she ardently wanted to be here to talk with you, express her policies, and tell you of her future plans. But she's at the wedding of her son today, and you've got to commend her for those that she puts family first. I think she didn't know, she was hoping this conflict would be resolved before today. But she calls me Sunday and says, hey, would you come down and talk on my behalf? So I've got answers to the questions. And I said, sure, Jane, I'll be glad to do that for you. I'm a nobody. I have no political sense. I have little, I mean, I'm here with these august men, and I just really don't know things. So I'm going to talk to you as folks, but I'm going to read things that she wrote. Now, guys, I'm not in the rebuttal. You're looking at a one-armed debater here because I'm not rebutting. I am reading Jane's now. I moved here with my husband, Robin, and 12-year-old daughter, Amy, in 2007. All of us tonight, or our ancestors, moved here at some time. We all want to build a good life for our families and have a desire to make a better place to live. 6 months ago, I stepped up to become the District 1 Commissioner. I wanted to serve the community that was been so welcoming to us. These were big shoes to fill. A lot of work had been done by my predecessor. Now, the focus for me is on the future. I knew I could do a good job based on my science, engineering, management, and leadership background. As commissioner, I brought a new team and different ideas to the job. I am positive, approachable, and experienced leader, and I ask for your confidence and vote.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The first question tonight is, what impact has VRBO, Airbnb, and other types of private nightly rentals having on the lodging tax? Should the commissioners address this issue, and if so, how?
Okay, now it's all of this VRBO, Airbnb, these have a huge impact on the county. And it's an issue not only here, but truly nationwide. I was directly involved in not only the creation, but the implementation of the nightly rental program in Grand Lake. This model has been used as a guideline for other communities around the country. It has been tested and upheld in court. What we need is to be fair and equitable. It's not fair for a hotel to pay 4 times as much in taxes as an individual property owner that receives income from nightly rentals. Through the ordinance in Grand Lake, the county could be assured of the receipts of sales and lodging taxes from such rentals. This creates a more level playing field. Subdivisions or HOAs would have the controlling decision as to whether or not nightly rentals would be allowed within their respective communities. Some of the requirements, besides having the HOA approval, are adequate off-street parking, trash service, snow removal, and a local contact if there are any problems. The annual license fee is based upon the difference in taxes between a commercial and residential property of the same value. The interesting thing is that when Grand Lake initially implemented this program, we anticipated that there might be around 30 licenses issued, when in fact the town now has over 80 nightly rental licenses. All of the license fees that are collected are directed towards specifically marketing of Grand Lake. Should the citizens of Grand County be in favor of such a program, the funds could be earmarked for any specific needs designated by the county. Thank you.
Well, I guess the assessor just answered that question, didn't he? I think there needs to be a fair playing field for everybody. If hotel owners and motel owners, B&B owners are charging this tax or not charging this tax, it isn't fair. If a private homeowner has his home that they are renting and not collecting sales tax, lodging tax, etc., it's an unfair advantage to the people that are playing by the rules. Case in point, construction companies. If you have a undocumented worker, if this construction company has undocumented workers, not paying workers' comp, having liability insurance, this is a gigantic advantage over the company that is playing by the rules and paying all the taxes. I'm against the commissioners hiring somebody to go out and enforce these laws if the only net gain is the salary of this new employee. If this job can be absorbed, great. My view is I think you either need to make everybody comply with the tax or get rid of the tax completely. It needs to be fair and equitable for everybody.
This might be the most right question for humor tonight because you've got 4 Republicans up here that are probably going to all argue for enforcing tax collection, which is not very common. But yeah, I'm in line, I think, with the 2 previous answers. It's got to be fair. And good point, Chaz. I think it should be absorbed, not a new position. I think we can use some creative technology solutions to find those that are doing this. I consulted with 2 real estate agents and 2 property managers to ask their views on this, and they came back very strongly. They are personally paying the taxes on the properties they manage, and they just know that there's this huge Armageddon of units out there that aren't, or potentially aren't. And we should give credit to a lot of the Airbnb and VRBO folks who do pay, some do. So it's not like everyone's bad, but it is a large body. I don't know the exact stat, but I think Airbnb's claim is that in their first year, they became the largest hotel chain in the world as measured by rooms available worldwide. And so it is very easy to put your house up. In fact, I plan to try to put my house up this summer if I could ever get unpacked. And we'll see how it goes. I'll pay my taxes. You could double check with me, Chaz. And I agree. We should try to figure out ways to make it enforceable, talk about it, we can use technology, and I think everyone should be paying their taxes. Pretty simple.
So I own a similar property to this. The Backcountry Hut, the High Lonesome Hut's been in operation for 20 years, and I'm deemed a residential property at the 7%. I hope I'm not getting in trouble with the assessor down here, but the differentiation between commercial and residential is very clear, as Tom was kind enough to explain to me. So I called around for information. It puts all of us in kind of an odd position to one candidate to another, but Tom serves as assessor, and he takes that as his first job. I appreciate that. It's a big problem. As a Frasertown trustee, I'm right in the middle of trying to improve the employee housing situation in the Fraser Valley. People can make a lot more money off their house as a nightly rental than they can as a full-time rental. So that's a side effect of this that has a tremendous impact on the community. But I appreciate the freedom to be able to rent out this High Lonesome Hut of mine that's operated successfully for 20 years. And then I helped a nonprofit build the Broom Hut up on Berthoud Pass. The proceeds from that help support an education program up there that really helps kids and young adults learn about avalanche danger and the things that unfortunately take too many young people, especially out of our community. So people need to have the right to be able to do this, but bottom line, we've got to equalize the playing field. And this is the first I've learned of Grand Lakes program. It sounds excellent. Boulder has a similar program where they charge a 7.5% lodging tax. We charge 1.8%. That would have to go to the voters, but I've always stood in favor of lodging taxes as sales taxes as a good way to raise revenue in Grand County because it comes from the tourists, and the tourists create a tremendous impact, and it helps keep our cost of living for locals low. We can't price ourselves out in the marketplace, but we can still afford, I think, to be competitive and still have higher taxes. So here's one Democrat talking about higher taxes, but as Rich notes, this is a nonpartisan job. We have to just do what's best for the county. Thank you.
There was a 60 Minutes, or it's called On Assignment, done maybe just last week actually, because this is an issue that is going on nationwide about these VRBOs and Airbnb, and they interviewed the CEO of Airbnb, I believe it was, and this guy became basically a millionaire. I think it was referenced here about how he became the largest hotel chain basically within a year's time. by getting all these listings on his website. So it's an issue that not only are we dealing with here, but it's all over the country. And there's certainly pros and cons to it. As far as Grant County goes, right now, our lodging tax is 1.8%, as you just heard, and that only raises about $220,000 a year. The sales tax, the countywide 1% sales tax, raises about $1.6 million a year. So the lodging tax is only about 13% of that. Now, could it be a lot more? Yes. Is it troublesome to say that we need to tax everybody that wants to rent out their house to make a little extra income, or should we just make it sit there vacant? That doesn't seem to me like it's a good use of resources. When that house is sitting there, we went through all the expense, we used all the resources, all the building materials to build it, and now we're going to come in and tell you, you can't do that. It's your own property, but you can't do that. So it's a little bit troublesome in that way, but at the same time, I would agree that it probably needs to be revised, the entire system, so that it is an equitable playing field for all. The hotel guys don't like it when they can put these rooms up on the website and people sign up for it. For the consumer, it brings a lot of people to Grant County. In fact, my personal experience, my daughter, who is a teacher, also graduated Middle Park High School, a teacher out in Ray, Colorado, befriended a family that comes up here. We went and stayed with them for dinner at their B&B. It was a great experience. They loved it. They come back every year. It's a great way to bring dollars to Grant County. Thank you.
So, Commissioner Jane Toilette says, collected lodging tax has been increasing for the past few years, which is good, which may or may not be due to private nightly rentals paying lodging tax. There are many who do not pay. About 4 or 5 years ago, the county sent letters to private rentals informing them that they needed to be registered and paying this tax. However, candidly, there has been no enforcement. It is a fight I'm not sure we need to engage in right now. The private rentals do bring people to Grant County where they spend money on more than lodging. Other resort areas have decided not to enforce and monitor this. It can be costly from a time and possibly a goodwill perspective. For now, I do not see it as a fight we should immediately start, but we should continue to inform the public how to comply with the lodging tax.
The main thing that we need to understand is to be fair and equitable. And I can only speak for Grand Lake, where all of the hotel owners acknowledge and agree that there are not enough beds to meet all the requirements during the peak summer. They were part of the whole agreement to making this program work. The other thing we need to understand is that Summit County, a major resort community, took on VRBO. And they won because they were arguing over it was illegal to data mine to try to find those VRBO owners. Summit County won. This is something that I think that if the citizens of Grant County want this, I think we should pursue it. Thank you.
Yes. It is a tricky proposition. If we're going to hold these owners, and there's 27,000 residences in Grant County. There's only about 14,000 full-time residents. Okay, so that obviously leads to a lot of empty beds, pillows, that brings or lets opportunities to bring guests to Grant County, places to stay. We know that it's not really the best use of resources to build the church for Easter Sunday, right? We already have all these homes here that are empty unless we can use this VRBO or Airbnb to get people to come and stay in existing structures. Now the tricky part that we all really need to be aware of is if we start classifying these homes as hotels and putting them to the same standard, then does that mean we have to classify them as commercial property? I'm not sure that's going to go over so big. So something to think about there.
differentiation between commercial and.
You're on, brother.
Thank you, sir. Differentiation by law between residential and commercial is pretty clear, and I don't think there's anything under state statute that we can classify all these residential properties as commercial. So that's not really a question. The question is everybody does their fair part, and it's not a battle. We're not going to fight people to get this tax. We're going to ask them to do their fair part. I talked to Sarah Rosine today. She says that, like myself and most of us that own these types of properties, we're more than happy to pay that tax to the county. It doesn't come out of my pocket. I put it as an addition to the lodger's bill, and then it goes to the state and to the county and to the lodging tax. So I think it's pretty easy to get cooperation, and I think it's worth, Sarah does not have the funding, and the state doesn't provide the funding for sales tax enforcement, so it's going to be difficult, but data mining is certainly an easier way to do it. Computers have made our lives easier in enforcement, so I would certainly encourage us to go after this revenue source.
Okay, second question. What have you learned from the theft of controlled substances from the EMS department? Why did the existing procedures not prevent this, and what has been done or can be done to prevent a reoccurrence? Chaz, if you'd start, please.
This all started for me when I was reading some prior commissioner meeting minutes, and one commissioner said on the record, "What about the EMS thing?" And that was it, nothing more. The conversation ended, and I thought, that was odd. What was all that about? What were they just talking about? I haven't heard anything about EMS. So it took some digging, and it wasn't long until we found out that there was a drug diversion that had happened in EMS long before the public knew anything about it. Drug diversion can be defined as any act or deviation that removes a prescription drug from its intended path from the manufacturer to the patient. Prescription opiate addiction, which has reached epidemic proportions here in the United States. I contacted the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and in the beginning they were very upfront about giving us some information about the case. After a few calls, however, the communication stopped. They would return our emails, calls, nothing. I guess I was asking too many questions. You have to remember that this is fentanyl, a highly powerful synthetic morphine opiate that was being stolen, injected, and also sold for profit. This EMT was replacing this stolen drug with some other liquid. But what was the liquid? Our question was there any patients that were put in contact with this EMT that could have been exposed to a contaminated needle used by this person? Why was the county waiting so long to announce what had happened? Many months had passed. What you also need to understand is that this is the department that was under the direct supervision of the previous county manager. Yes, the same one that was in control of the building department, and we all know the mismanagement that happened there. EMS was off limits to anybody that wanted to look at this department except for the county manager. Existing procedures only work if they are enforced. Yes, new procedures are in place.
Yeah, this is a large nationwide problem. I think fentanyl is the drug that killed Prince, if I remember right, to read that map. The new procedures include packaging and hardened devices so you can't access a drug with a needle. They also are inventorying this device. If I read the newspaper article correctly, back in September of 2015, said that they're only inventorying every 3 months. And I would try to see if I could talk to Ray Jennings, the chief of EMS, and see if they could go monthly with that. I think a monthly schedule is more appropriate for something like this. And I think across county government, it probably won't be too popular as commissioner at first, but I would try to get more regular checks and balances, more regular controls. I come from the military. We had a very, it was just routine, man. You just had to do it, you got it done, and we'll try to bring that in place. And you know, we got to buy him some donuts some mornings or something to smooth it over. But we'll try to clean things up a bit. But you know, this poor guy. I mean, he did something wrong. He got punished for it. He's been he served his time. He's on probation now, and we talked about job for each other, our fellow county employees. You know, so I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
So part of my career in Grant County was police reporter for the Winter Park Manifest for 6 years. And it was interesting to follow this case through. I tried CBI also. I guess my information from them was that investigating officer is actually retired. So it was very hard to get information out of them. But my bottom line question to Bill Housley, Granby took the lead on this to begin with, to Brett, our county sheriff, all of them, and to EMS, to Ray Jennings when I talked with him, was, have you guys instituted procedures to prevent this from happening again? And specifically what this gentleman did was to take a vinyl package, a locked vinyl package, secured vinyl package, and stick a needle through the vinyl and into the vial, withdraw the fluid, the fentanyl, and then put saline back in again. And that's really the terrifying part of this, is some patient could have easily been compromised, not got the pain medication they needed. It could have followed up to other implications at the hospital. It's terrifying when these type of things happen. So Matthew Holmes was the person's name. I was a little surprised that he had a 90-day sentence and 48 hours of community service after this. It seems a little brief for this level of crime. But it does sound like they've gone to a hard case. This couldn't be done again. These are now secured in a hard case. You couldn't introduce a needle into this. And it did sound like Ray has worked that through. Everybody involved in the case concurred that that's at least the step to take. But this opiate addiction problem, which according to my research and the people I talked to, 1 in 10 medical professionals have a substance abuse problem. If they want to get it, somehow they're going to get it. But I'm hoping that EMS and all of our professionals in Grant County can try and stay one step ahead of these people that can compromise our medical safety. Thank you.
There were very strict protocols in place for probably 8 years before this happened, and they're even stricter now. It's not going to be impossible. There's only really 3 characteristics that a person would need to have in order to really steal something from EMS. One of which would be to be very creative. The second one would be to be very intelligent. And the third one would be to be morally challenged. So, even with the strict protocols that are in place now, one of which involves a needleless protocol and a locked system of making sure that these things are completely accounted for, is in place. There were good measures in place before, but they're even stricter now. And the reason that information couldn't come out as timely as maybe some of us would have liked is that it was under an ongoing investigation, so there was not information released to the public. I think it probably should have been a stiffer sentence, but I'm not the judge, I'm not the jury. One of the two things that Mr. Jennings, and I would urge any of you that have questions about this to talk to Mr. Jennings firsthand, because he can give you all kinds of details, more than we have time for all night here, about how they work to ensure that this doesn't happen again, knowing that it probably still can. But one of the things that they really stress that they try to do is not compromise their employees' safety, and number 2, not compromise the patient's safety. And those protocols, or those things, those two characteristics are addressed in the protocols. Is it impossible to steal? No. It can still happen, but it would be extremely difficult, and it would be very easy to catch the person, most likely. Thank you.
Commissioner Jane Toilette says, drug diversion happens in the best of systems, but you don't blame a bank for an armed robbery. The drug diversion between November 2012 and 2013 was by a former EMS, and I think Andy's described how it was stolen very well. But nobody was sickened or damaged by this incident. And this is because over 10 years ago, the EMS department switched to a needleless system. They don't have needles. This helps prevent cross-contamination of medicines as well as the spread of such diseases as hepatitis and HIV. Drugs are now kept in a safe that can only be accessed with a passcode by 2 people. Drugs are stored in the EMS vehicles in hard plastic containers so the needles cannot be used to penetrate the enclosure. The EMS department now does drug testing on employees, both random and on hire. After the drug diversion surfaced, Chief Race Jennings contacted Colorado Bureau of Investigation to conduct a third-party investigation, as well as the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, which oversees the EMS licensing. Both CBI and CDPHE were impressed with the EMS safety procedures, and there were no penalties placed on our EMS department as a result of the investigation. Chief Jennings and his people continue to work to stay ahead of this issue.
There's a great degree of similarity between this case and the building department over lack of accountability. The theft had been going on for over a year before it was reported to the sheriff's department. And it was only after the authorities began investigation that EMS became aware. And I'm sorry, but the CBI was not invited. They invited themselves to the investigation. What is frightening to me is that EMS professionals are supposed to be trained in drug abuse awareness and the symptoms, yet obviously they didn't follow their own procedures. The prosecution wanted to proceed with additional charges, but the victim, EMS, wanted to show leniency and refused to file additional charges. The real victims are the citizens of Grand County. The real tragedy is the further erosion of public trust. The question remains, yes, Mr. Holmes was convicted, but who was held accountable? Was the decision of leniency solely made by EMS, or was it with the approval of the county commissioner? In the military, when there is such a serious charge, while we are acknowledging that the captain of the ship didn't do it, he is relieved of his duties because of the lack of confidence in his ability to command. Thank you.
Are there any rebuttals?
Again, the same thing that we're hearing over and over. This is something that happened over in the past, and we want to blame someone else for the person that committed the crime. The person that committed the crime went through the system, they went to jail, they got the punishment that is administered by our judicial system. But yet, we want to blame someone else. Do we blame the bank if somebody steals from a teller? Do we blame the car lot if somebody steals the wheels off your car? Think about that a little bit. Just like I said, there is protocols in place that are very strict and very rigid. There is locking safes. There is accountability. It's not going to completely prevent it from happening again, but that doesn't mean that the ship is sinking. It simply means that some morally challenged individual or someone that is addicted to some kind of a chemical needed something so bad they're willing to break those rules or policies and figure out how to do it. Thank you.
We certainly do, and if a bank is robbed, we're certainly going to look at the security at the bank. We're not going to just blame the bank robber. We're going to go beyond and look for systemic problems. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just good governance. That's just good management of the bank. Thank you.
Can I rebut? I'll take 15 seconds. It was almost 90 days from the time we found it until it was a press release. Is that irresponsible for the commissioners or whoever is in charge to at least let the citizens know that this happened? What if you had a loved one that happened to be on one of those rides and they needed an injection? Just consider that.
Okay, the third question. What is your take on the County Road 804 problems? How should this be addressed? Did the county receive fair value for the dollars spent? Is there any way for the county to recoup any of these costs? And what will prevent a similar event in the future?
Thank you for the 19-part question. So first of all, this is a good idea. It's a joint project, right, between the county and the town of Fraser. And I think we should have, well, everybody's mouth is sour from the project, but I think that's in general a good thing when the county cooperates with the towns for things like this. In 2015, $705,000 was budgeted for this project. I went to the Fraser Town Council meeting last year where you guys were discussing the problems that were found, repairs needed, more money from Fraser, I assume more money from the county. So I did a lot of road projects in the military. What we frequently did is we would have a contract. We'd consider whether we get a contract that recoups costs. Usually those are much more expensive though to buy. So what most governments do is they take the risk, they go with a contractor that's performed well in the past and try to save some money. But then if there's problems, one part of the question says, how should it be addressed? We finish the road. I mean, you gotta eat it, you gotta finish the road, you gotta finish the project, and that's the risk you take. We would typically budget in the military 10 to 15%, 10 to 25% extra. We wouldn't tell anybody. It's just in our mind and we put it on the side, we have it ready. Overruns are very common, and it doesn't make it excusable. I'm not gonna be flippant about it, but that's just, it's, you know, when you build a building, you build a road, those things sometimes happen. So we'll evaluate whether we want the insurance of the contract that recoups or whether we try to save money and trust the workers. And I think some of the problems with this road were how it was built before, if I remember the town council meeting correctly. So there's no way to ensure theft will never happen again, things like the drugs. There's no way to ensure that projects won't go over sometimes. Thank you.
So another part of my resume, I'm a general contractor and a Fraser Town board member. 804 is actually 3 agencies. It's the town of Fraser, Grant County, and Winter Park Branch Water and Sanitation District. The Sand District initiated this project because it needed a new main going up right up the middle of the road. 804, for those that don't know, is the hill up the Meadow Ridge behind Safeway. It's the busiest county road in the system. Last fall, they weren't quite done. They put they had a decision to make. Do we put both layers of asphalt down, or do we put one layer of asphalt down to try and keep this surface drier? I talked with Tim Gagnon as the engineer for the project. He's been criticized for the failure of this single layer of pavement. They really expected this to happen. They hadn't finished it. It happened so late in the fall, they hadn't finished their compaction. They're expecting to pull the pavement parts, quite a bit of it up. Obviously, it's failed pretty much generally down the hillside. They don't expect an extra charge from the contractor for this. The $110,000 change order that's apparent came about because they were hoping for better soils underneath. Kumar and Associates, who I dealt with in the Hot Sulphur Springs project, they're a soils company. They expected a better base underneath that asphalt. They expected we'd be able to grind up the asphalt, prepare an asphalt base, and save quite a bit on paving. We found too much river rock in that hillside. I don't know why they missed that there'd be rocks in the Rocky Mountains, but they did. They ate about $25,000 in their soil testing. We're just going to have to put an extra $110,000 into the road to make it work on the poorer base than we thought and than we expected. The other big criticism is the pan at the top. Nobody likes pans, but I don't like frozen underground drainage systems and drainage systems that clog up with dirt and things in the future. Pan is a lot more serviceable. It's not the best place for a pan at the top of that hill, but it hopefully will slow people down. Thank you.
I think that we should withhold judgment on this project until it's actually done. There was some complications that came up, some of which Mr. Miller, who had done some research into this, are correct. There was a different size of rock than the original engineering report showed. So there was also some changes in terms of the drainage. So we did make a special exception to allow the paving crews to work on the weekend, which is not normally accepted, and have the asphalt plant provide asphalt through a weekend, which is not normally acceptable for a special use permit, so that we could get that first lift on, which if we wouldn't have, would be driving on gravel and mag chloride and muck right now. All of the issues that you've heard, and you're probably going to continue to hear about the compaction, about the quality of the asphalt, whatever, are all in the contract agreement that we have with these good local contractors that we had do this job. So I think we should withhold judgment here until we get the final project done, which is going to happen sometime this summer. In my opinion, it was a great collaboration of 3 entities to come together to get a road, which is the heaviest traveled road in Grand County, to get that thing only torn up one time at inconvenience to our citizens, replace the water line, get the paving fixed, get the drainage fixed, get a little bit of space for walking on the side, get that all done in one time, and have a better product in the end. So let's think about that before we get too critical of this project until we actually see when it's done and see the final numbers. Thank you.
Commissioner Gene Tollett says, this was a complex project, jointly run by, as the gentleman, Mr. Miller has said, by 3. And I am chairman of the board of Tabernash Water, Meadows Water and Sewer District, and I know what it takes to get 3 different boards together. That's my personal thing. And they were optimizing resources to prevent a very busy road from being torn up more than once, which happens very often. A secondary goal, obviously, was to allow the traffic flow during the times of construction. Yes, Jane says, Commissioner Jane, the county received a fair value for the dollars spent. There was no boondoggling, engineers, and had we had not made later changes to the design of Phase 3 to accommodate a pedestrian lane at the proper request of the public, the total value of all change orders would have been 5.2 above the total bid cost. Preventing this in the future will entail better and more complete designs up front, fewer change orders, that's the result of better and complete design, and better way to manage change orders, such as authorizing the field engineer and our road and bridge supervisor to authorize field changes up to a certain cost. I think she told me $2,000 to $3,000, without entailing a week-long process of submitting it to for formal approval.
I have to admit that with the short time span to research this, and this happens to be our busiest time of the season with protests, and we've got 300 protests, we have to resolve all of them within the next 30 days, that I truly don't have enough information to give an informed decision. So I would like to go a little off script and talk about one of the main